Perfect. Okay, hello everyone. Been a lot of technical snags tonight, both having trouble with the computers, um, being unable to get the latest code because I'd pushed the code up to my server and I hadn't pulled it down to this particular machine, and then I got SSH banned from my own server. And then I said, I'm not going to wait for the ban. I'll just rebuild the server. And then I had trouble rebuilding the server. There have been a lot of problems tonight. But going to do some coding for the next hour and a half, although I might stop in half an hour and make a cup of coffee. Anyway, working on the Visions virtual tabletop. It's not much of a virtual tabletop yet. I'm really just kind of working on user management, authentication, all of that. But ideally, tonight, we would be able to create users and maybe even have those users be able to create games, even though the games will mostly be just placeholders. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Anyway, this is Coding Together on the Luminescent Dreams channel. This is a series in which basically I try to make programming a bit more accessible by showing how even somebody with a lot of experience can struggle, and also kind of talking through my workflow. So yeah, I'm going to get some music started here. I'm also going to make sure that the music is not getting streamed to YouTube. I had a bit of trouble with OBS that way as well, which would be ironic because I'm going to be streaming the music from YouTube. It's kind of fun. Let's see, what do I want? I just want some chill hop tonight. Really a fan of the various chill hop channels, especially the ones that have like the raccoon. I'm going to do the chill hop year mix 2024. Just start over back at the beginning. Oh, this is gonna get confusing. But, okay. Yep. Okay, cool. It's not streaming. Excellent. Get some music going. Alrighty. So I've tried doing a couple of live streams in the last couple of days about this, and really struggled in particular because the web service that I was using, Warp, there's some pretty basic things like being able to provide shared state data to my handlers that was being extremely difficult to manage. I could never quite figure out how to reliably get the data there and have it, well, compile, like make the borrow checker happy. So ultimately I've switched over to Axum. I've only written a couple of handlers so far. I am liking it in particular because there's no big separation between errors that I throw and the status code that gets returned. I need to be able, Warp kind of throws it in so that in your normal application, you never actually return a status code. You have to do that in a special location, and it just gets weird. But let's get into this. I'm going to open it up, routes.rs. Checking the size, that's looking pretty good on stream. Oh, and I'm also writing test code. Like, check it. Of course, this is test not only of the route, but also of the handler. I'm going to go ahead and start up the server so that I can kind of demonstrate it. No, not. Let's see here. Open game.db. Oh, I don't have a database yet, do I? Oh yeah, I do. Okay. Open game.db, query, select star from users. Wait. Yeah. I thought that was how you query a database in well, I've got SQLite installed, don't I? Yeah. Okay, cool. I've got an admin user. That is sufficient for this test right now. So task dev. We'll just start up the dev server. This new machine is so amazingly fast. I'm kind of astounded. I haven't had a desktop machine in 20 years. It's really impressive. Ignore the temperature meter up here. I have no idea what that is reading. It's clearly wrong though. Because what are my temperatures running at? Not bad. Looks like everything's below 50 degrees. I think I saw one of these hit like 80 degrees when I'd been playing a game, but I don't know what any of these are attached to. Like it is the motherboard, but yeah, I don't know what that's about. Okay. So the server is up. We're going to post an authentication request. This should return a 401 because I'm not giving the password. And 100% does. Here we go. Here's the 401. So now we're going to give a password, and that's correct. We get a session ID back. Pretty standard. Session ID gets used for the bearer token. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's try it. I'm having trouble remembering at the moment where I was. Don't need a content type. Header? No. Authorization, bearer. (7.0.1 8001 API v1 user). Is user right? No, that's for, yeah. So this should give a user profile. But I don't know how to set the flag. So you can set the content. Okay, headers. I think failing this, I will look up the documentation. No. Okay. Oh, and post isn't even the right thing. I need to get. Oh, okay. Yes, it does work. There we go. So bearer token for authorization. So that's cool. So really the next thing, create a user. So we'll close that. Terminate that. So an admin can create a user. Here we go. Going to do a pretty standard thing here of grabbing my setup code. Now this server right here, put that in air quotes. It is actually an object called a test server that's included in the Axum test crate. You set up all of your routes, you pass them to this test server, and then you can use that to create requests against the server, and then the requests will function as though they were requests made from outside. So for instance, going to do give me a response, and we're going to say server dot, I want to log in first. I need to authenticate. So we'll say server.post. And this creates a test request. Then we're going to do .json auth request. Like basically all of this stuff. I'm just going to grab these things because this is all I want to do. I just want to get a session ID. Now, once I've gotten that, server.post API v1 user, not post, put, because what I'm doing is creating a new user. Add header, authorization, format, bearer, session ID. Oh wait, we'll format that. Somewhere my proc macros failed. I don't know why Rust Analyzer is angry, but something went wrong. So if I'm wanting to create a user, I also need to give it a body. .json. Now what I don't remember is whether I have created any part of the create user request. Okay, I have, and the only thing I need to give it is a username. The formatting code is not, the formatter is not working. So, there we go. I missed a closing parenthesis somewhere. So close that. No, I didn't. Mismatched closing delimiter. Somewhere in here. Okay, put, add a header, format, there we go. And this needs to be a string. Okay, and I'm going to assert that this succeeds, even though it might not. There have been a couple of cases where I've written the test code and things have passed, and I'm like, can't be. And so I've purposely broken the code itself to verify that, yes, in fact, the tests and the code are correct. So we're going to see. Okay. Admin can create a user. It panics. Okay, cool. Core 133. So this is the handler. So that means that we are getting to this line of code right here. So let's talk about Axum now. I'm going to go up to the routes here. We have, so this is the route that we're working on, although there's several of them. All of these routes get assembled, all of these routes get assembled into one coherent API. Further, when you can specify a path, and then you can specify different methods and the handlers. So this thing is really built for REST requests, or a REST API, because it has this association between a route and each one of the individual methods, and the idea that there can be multiple methods that have multiple major functions on a certain path. So we're working on the put request. Now, one thing here, the data types start getting pretty difficult to follow, but okay. I'm cloning my core, and then I'm passing it into this function. This function ultimately it is a function that gets executed, which returns a future, right? Yes. And this is kind of the complicated part. In fact, I'm going to open my notebook. You'll get to see my really terrible handwriting, but I've been really enjoying having my tablet be continuously plugged in. Yeah, let's move this over to screen one. Nope, that's not right. Here we go. Ooh, cursor. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Where can I find it? And eventually I will fully analyze these notes and get a much better intuitive understanding and create a better document. Okay. A route. First of all, you were seeing the path that I was writing. So this is like, I mean, I've got examples of the paths here. API v1 users. And then the method router. The method router is complicated. Oh, I'm not sure that I can explain it. How do I explain this? Well, I sort of can, because we've got your get function and the put and post functions, and all of the other HTTP verbs are kind of the same. Each one of them accepts an existing method handler and returns self. I have a dog dancing around at my feet. Hi, what are you doing? Oh dear. Oh, is it playtime again? Your other mama went upstairs, so it's playtime? I'm gonna pull you up into my lap. You can be on camera too. Oh. Eventually this dog will not be a puppy and thus will not be super active, but this is the active time of the night. Oh my god. You're so cute. You're so cute. Hi, you're so cute. Well, I'm going to go for a little bit longer, and then maybe I'll grab you a bone, and I'm going to make myself a cup of coffee. Something like that. No, I'll just keep drinking water tonight. Oh, okay. Chill out in my lap. Well, if you chew on me too much, I'm going to put you on the pedestal over here. Yeah, no, I need my hands. Okay. So this get method returns a method router. There's sort of these static versions of the methods, or not static, function versions as opposed to method versions, which serve the same function, except that they're good for creating a method router to begin with. Whereas all of these that are methods on the method router consume one method router and return a new one. The parameter that we want to look at, though, is the handler right here. This is that function that I pass in, the one that I have so much trouble explaining. And following the types is pretty tough at the moment. But a handler is a trait, and the only requirement of the trait is that, okay, nope, you've got to go over here. I say the only requirement. There's actually a lot of requirements. Anything that implements the trait has to implement this call function. Axum is going to presumably eventually call the call function with the request that comes in and a state that's been provided. If you're using, what was it called? They have they have a special setup for that. It's related to this with state function. So if you're using this, then it provides the state. In any case, the call function is going to return a future. Okay, last night I was able to follow through enough of this to be able to sort of understand it. Type future, the handler is of type TS. State S is state T. I never quite figured out in reading the documents. Let's see if I can find state extractor. I'm not using state extractors. I am using the passing state through a closure. Oh yeah, okay. No, sort of. Handler TS, move health check. FN. Somehow I figured out that a function that takes no parameters but returns a future, I don't think this output is correct, but returns a future, implements handler. Impl handler for FN wants, oh, this is how. I think this is somewhere in the source. Let's find out, actually. Let's just have fun with trying to understand this thing, because it does seem really promising. Oh, I wanted to go to the docs. Handler. Okay, trait, handler. So all of this, basically I transcribed things. It's one of the ways that I try to arrange things in order to organize it better when I'm really being conscious about learning. Implementers for, oh, well, this is it right here. It's the very first implementer. And there's a variety of them. It looks like the primary changes are in what they return. T1, T2, or no, parameters that are passed in, and presumably future output is res. Res is one of the parameters for the handler. These are some pretty rough types to read, but res is again anything that can be turned, or it can be turned into a response. So reading the documentation was what told me that this code right here, post with create user returning a future, like reading the documentation is what told me that this would work. Or reading the example documentation. It's reading this that finally convinced me that I kind of, but only kind of, knew what we were doing here. So I'm going to get all of this out of the way. Okay. Now, getting back into it. Create user is an async function. It returns, and this is where I actually start to get really happy. It returns explicitly a status code and a JSON result. Status codes aren't hidden away in this thing. They're part of the handlers. Makes it much easier for me. Now, I might regret that later. Maybe. But only because it would create more boilerplate. Now here's where it does get weird, though. I probably should not have gotten rid of it, or gotten rid of the documentation, but this function right here kind of takes some not exactly arbitrary parameters. Each one of these parameters is understood, like Axum understands it, and it uses polymorphism to figure out what data to extract from a request and put into these parameters. So I'm not actually explicitly saying pull this stuff out of the request, but it is becoming available. And instead of just kind of talking about it, I'm going to bring that documentation back. When we come down here and we look at this, so at the moment I'm working with a function that has two parameters, so T1 and T2. Let's see here. T1 must be a from request parts, which is a, oh, that's kind of cool. Okay. From request parts is a trait that represents that it's going to get information from like the detailed breakdown of a request, but it's not going to consume the request. By contrast, from request completely consumes the request. And what I'm seeing here is for all of these, it's only the very last parameter that can be a request consumer. So that's interesting. Although it might be that JSON is not necessarily a request consumer. JSON is how you decorate data to tell it that it should interpret the body as JSON. JSON only implements from request. Back up. Let's try header map. Where's header map declared? Header map is declared here. There must have been something that allows us to extract response parts. Response parts. I don't know how. Oh, right. Or from request parts. From request parts. Implementations. Yeah, okay. So from request parts is implemented for header map. So yeah, that's how it works. It's just all of the polymorphism. I assume that basically if we looked into these trait implementations, there would be, well, let's stop assuming and let's look at the code. Oh, wait, this is going to be, oh yeah, this is a big old macro. And I have no interest in understanding the macro. But I think that the generated code, there's going to be a, for each parameter, like all of these parameters, T1, T2, or if we come down here, T1, T2, T3, T4, there's going to be a call on that parameter to the function from request parts, which is how it figures out exactly how, like which data type it wants, and thus from which data type, how to get that data out of the request. So yeah. So I almost understand how that works. I can kind of visualize it. This is the only magic so far that I have seen in Axum, and it's not even all that magical per se. So for this one, I grabbed the headers because I want to be able to check the authentication header. And I grabbed the request, parse it out into a create user request. And then we're going to pass that into the create user function. And the create user function is pretty understandable. It takes my core, it takes the headers, it takes the create user request, and it's going to return a status code and a JSON response. In this case, there's not going to be anything in the response. I'm just going to return none in all of the successful cases. But I needed some data types because I haven't fully refined some of the authentication handlers. Oh, this is wrong. That's fine. I'll fix it in a moment. I wrote a function that requires authentication. This endpoint, you can't call it if you're not authorized or if you're not authenticated. It only needs the headers, and then it needs whatever function it's supposed to call if authentication is successful. And the one that it's going to call will be all of the rest of this processing. And I did it this way so that auth required, although it should be admin required, which I'm going to change right now. Admin required itself can return status code. Okay, yeah, you can chew on that. Can return status code in JSON. Admin required is pretty easy. We need to check that the session exists. If it does exist, well, if it exists, I'm going to get a full-on user row back. And a user row looks like I had SQLite 3 in, oh. I don't have it installed globally. A user row looks like this. User ID, username, password, whether or not the user is an admin, whether or not the user is enabled. So if the user is an admin, then we're going to execute the original function. The original function this took a while for me to Google up, but the original function must be an fn once. It wants to take a user, and it's going to return a future, and that future will be output status code JSON option A. As generic as I can make it, I think I can still make it better. Dude, I need you to not chew on me. I need my hands. I might have to pause in a moment just to go go make some coffee and get the dog one of his chew toys. Can you format better? Yes, thank you. That's better. Okay. So if the user is an admin, we're going to execute the original function. If not an admin, we're going to return forbidden. That's pretty standard. If the session doesn't exist, we're just going to return unauthorized. If there is an error that is non-fatal, we're going to return bad request. If there's a fatal error, we're going to panic. I'm not dead set on that being exactly how I handle it, but it is how I'm handling it for now. I want to come down here. And I'm doing something really similar. If the function that we originally execute is create user, and it's going to do all of this processing, I think I can refine it further. Maybe. Like, this is where the boilerplate is going to start coming in. And I'm going to want to make that better, but I don't know how yet. And this result extended is something that I created a while back. I haven't really used it extensively yet. It's based on an article about the sled.rs database, where they make a very strong distinction between ordinary recoverable errors and fatal errors that need to take the entire application down because there's just no recovery and potentially data is corrupt. They did it by nesting two results. So it would look like, so we'd say like sled result equals result. We'll say sled. I'm not going to bother. Sled result A is either result A or it's result. How is it done? Actually, I think it was result A, error, or fatal error, something like this, like some formulation like this, where you've always got two layers of results to deal with. I decided to flatten that out to a single layer that has three options. So we've got okay, pretty normal. We've got error, like this is recoverable. In this case, an error might be in fact, one case would be the username already exists, which should throw a database error. I'm hoping that's not a fatal error, but I'll find out when I write more tests. And then there's the fatal error, which would be like, we lost connection to the database process, or, well, that's effectively the only one right now. So that's how all of this works. And so far, pretty pleased. I'm going to jump in here to create user and figure out, okay, so, okay. In fact, I am going to, I don't even let the database decide. I try to retrieve that username, and if the username exists, I'll return that the username isn't available. So now we need to create the user. And this should be easy. I should be able to call state.db.saveuser and give it none for, which is the user ID, then username. There's going to be no password at first. Not an admin, and enabled. And the match arms do not match, probably because save user returns a regular result. Oh, that is one difficult error. Or not error, but documentation. And it's because it's a function on a trait. It returns either a user ID or a fatal error. So like the database layer can't even return ordinary errors. It only returns fatal errors because the only thing that can happen is programmer issues. Like some of the errors are like malformed query. Like, Savani, you didn't write the correct query. And other errors are like the database connection got lost. So, save user. Oh, right. I haven't explained that. The connection to the SQLite database can't be shared across processes in the particular Rust SQLite library that I'm using. So it's separated into two different things. There's a thread that I have running, which holds on to that connection. And then there is a object. There's an interface that sends to that thread and receives responses using channels. So that's how a database connection can be lost. And if that connection ever fails, like, I don't even know how that can fail, which is why it's fatal. If this were like the MySQL database went away, well, it could be that the MySQL database actually shut down or there was a network loss. That's not necessarily a fatal error. That one's recoverable, and I have written code to recover from that before. Okay, anyway, save user, it can return one of 3 error types, or one of 2 types. If it's okay, we're not going to return anything. We're going to say okay. And if it's an error, we're going to return fatal error. And that's not quite right because I have to await. Cool. There we go. We can now create a user. While I'm not going to be working through it tonight, ideal flow would be the user gets created and is inactive. The first time the user tries to log in, they're prompted to enter a password. Or maybe there's like a one-time code that the admin has to send to the user. This is not going to be a thing where users are going to just create themselves, because the application is really designed for private servers. And presumably, most of the time, the admin is just going to be the GM for most of the games on the server. So backing out, create user is working. Now okay, now we're going to add a new part, which is using the captures. So .route API v1 user ID get. It's basically going to be the same thing, but we care about the parameters. And I don't know how that works. Well, before I figure it out, Tokyo test async fn, a user can reset or can get their profile. Async fn a user can change their password. Hi. So, gonna grab the core and the server. I'm going to set up in fact, I'm gonna go ahead and create, how do I want to do this? Because basically, I need to take all of this and repeat it. So I'm gonna create another setup function. Why am I passing core around? I don't know that. I think I wanted to pass it around in order to enhance the test code, and I think I'm going to stop. Oh, right. Here's a case. This particular test requires access to the core, but the other tests do not. Therefore, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to modify the existing tests right now. Just going to return a server in this case. So we will let core server equals setup admin enabled. I don't need that. Server dot. So now I basically want all of this code right here. Select response server. Yeah, we're just going to assert response.assert status. Okay, it's literally all of the same code. That kind of bothers me. And the way I'm going to handle it, this also bothers me, but I'm going to do it anyway. There we go. Okay, cool. So if I want a user to be able to get their own profile, there's two ways to do it. One of them is by the default parameter, and then the other one is by the user ID. Then there's also an admin can get any user profile. I think I've technically already, in fact, I've already checked the user profile, so it returns, yeah, I'm already checking the user profile. So this is really just about the admin user being able to get any profile they want. So let server equals setup with user dot await, and then let response equals server dot get API v1 user with a user ID. Oh, I need the user ID. I'm not sure how I can get that before I've built out an endpoint for it. So I am going to keep passing the core in, or returning the core. So let's see here. Let users equals core dot list users dot await, and that should, oops, nope, didn't want to go there. Core dot rs, visions core dot rs. List games, create user, user by username, list users. Here we go. Oh no, let me just do user by username. Dot, and this is going to not return fatal. Match. Okay. Probably what I'm writing right now, what I keep on writing with these matches indicates that I need to write some more macros or something to help out with the ergonomics of this tool. Okay, so we get Savani back. And there we go. There's my user. Go to the data structure. We've got the user ID. So I'm going to pass in a user ID. It's going to be savani.id. I think that's it. I think display is implemented. Maybe. Having some trouble up 204. Why is that an unknown field? Oh, because it's an option. Okay. Expected. Yeah. So the get function wants that. User ID does not implement display. Yes, that sounds right. I don't know why I didn't implement display for these. Maybe I just didn't need them and I got tired of writing these macros. And now it's just going to be like duplicate the macro over and over again. Yeah, that's like literally everything I had to do to implement the user ID. Okay, cool. Yeah, this test is passing, but that's because it's not testing anything. No, that's not right. Assert status okay. No method named assert status show. Oh, because I didn't actually run the request. Dot get dot await. There we go. Good. That's failing for a 1. What is actually failing? A user can pass take that out. I only want one test failing right now. It's returning a 401. Why is it returning a 401? Because 401 is forbidden. Oh, I see. Right. It is getting into the get user function. It's failing because there's no authorization header. Cool. That's going to get complicated. So I'm going to grab another function, which I'm not going to, or another test that I'm not going to check right now. A user cannot get another user's profile unimplemented. Actually, no, that's not, I don't want to do that. Users should be able to get each other's profiles. There's going to be detailed information that a user can't get about other users. But they should be able to see one another. So I'm going to take that away. A can get any user profile. Okay. But you do have to be authenticated, and this request is absolutely not authenticated. And that is just fine by me right now, because I want to work on the capture variable. How do I retrieve that? I'm pretty sure that is one of the things that they documented on the front page. I don't think it's part of query params. An extractor is a type that implements one or the other of these. Let's jump into extractors. Oh, wait, nope, it's going to be covered right here. We've got shared state, ID path, get user path. Here. Okay, I don't know what this is going to be. Well, hang on, get user. It is a path. Oh. The path data type. Let me find the extractors here. Where are all of the types? Here we go. Path, an extractor that will get captures from the URL and then parse them using SERD. Okay, cool. So that means that what I want is user ID, which is a path user ID. I think that's going to work. So get user is now going to require an optional parameter. Now we're going to jump into there. So we are retrieving a user profile. So user ID is that. Okay. So this authenticated the user. So we're going to call this function if the user successfully authenticated, but I don't care about the user. Actually, I do care about that. This is the code that we're going to execute if there is no user ID. So that's like the default case. That's where you hit API v1 users. And it just pulls back the authenticated, the information about the currently authenticated users. But the else case is where we hit this endpoint where we've got UUID v4 whatever. I'm just going to copy all of this, even though it's not quite right. Let user equals core dot get. Actually, it's not get user, is it? It's just going to be fn user. Oh, I never wrote a function that handles that. Well, that's silly. I'm going to do a quick and dirty one so that I don't have to go diving through the entire database right now. So I grab the users from list users. And I'll just bail out if there's an error. And this is impossible. Oh, that's not good. Return error isn't supposed to do that. What? I'm going to assume that Rust Analyzer, or that Rust Analyzer is not keeping up. This should be a vector of users. So users.filter. Filter is not a method on a vex. So into iter.filter user.id equals user ID. We're going to go just a couple minutes longer, and then I am going to take a break to brew a cup of tea. We're also only half an hour from midnight in my time zone, the end of 2024, which on the whole was an okay year, and is going into 2025, which is going to be a disaster. Why is filter still returns an iterator? Okay, that's right. I just want the first thing from filter. First is available on vec, but okay. Maybe I can do find. There we go. Find does it. Ow. Shoulder hurts. I don't know why. Pub async fn get user. Looking in the wrong place. Routes. Oh, okay. Because this hasn't been saved yet. Okay. Now, I will later, not right now, but later I will come back and replace this function with something that calls into the database. But doing that requires going through a couple more layers of code, and I just don't want to. If user ID is not, in fact, I shouldn't be using an if statement. I should match so that I can deconstruct or destructure. So we get the user, match core.user, user ID with result ext. Okay. No, it's okay some user, I think. Yeah, it should be some user. if I were awaiting the result. Then there's none. I don't know why I just copy and pasted that. I'm going to have to eliminate almost everything. Status code not found. JSON none. Then there's result ext error, which is going to be status code bad request, JSON none, result ext fatal. It's going to be a panic. And things are very angry right now. Oh boy. Okay. It's probably a very simple syntax error. Expected a user ID, got option user ID. Oh. Expected nothing. What? Line 131. Expected. Oh. Much happier. Some extra code that I hadn't deleted yet. You're starting to see, though, there's some boilerplate here that I don't like. I'm not sure how I'm going to solve that yet. I'm going to want to, but I'm not doing it yet. Okay, that should be easy to fix. Filters.rs. Filters is no longer a thing. I just haven't deleted the file yet. So this is going to be path from Axum extract path. Only FN traits may use parentheses. Oh. Expected user ID found path use. Ah, yes. I'm going to extract that. There we go. And it failed unauthorized because I am not authenticating. I'm not providing an authorization, or I'm not providing a session. So I have Savani, which should be a user. That is the wrong thing to have gotten. Oh, I needed to authenticate. I didn't need to grab the user. Silly. Server dot post API v1 user dot JSON auth request username Savani password nothing. Why is that failing? Test request. Await the response. Okay. Unwrap error, deserializing response JSON for post request. Test response. What is happening? We're doing a post, so it's this authentication code. Presumably it's this one and not some others. Just in case, I'm going to remove all of this. Now the test should pass. It does. So it's going to be... I can get rid of this. Did I set... I don't think I set a password. I just create the user. I do still need the user ID. Oh, wow. That's... I need all of this... Oops. I need all of this code right here in order to be able to populate this. But I need all of this in order to populate this right here. So, yeah, this is fun testing. I am somehow failing to deserialize the JSON data, and that's a little bit weird to me. Because that's how an auth request works. So let's see if I can figure out where that's happening. Oh, because that's not how. Ugh, I still did the wrong thing. This also should not be this should not be panicking. It should not be calling a result, or it should not be calling unwrap anywhere. This is bad data. And so it should, in fact, be returning a bad request. Or it's bad data for the user endpoint. It's not bad data for the endpoint that we are now doing. There we go. That works. So that lets me query that user. I'm going to go ahead and query the profile for the admin user, because who knows? Maybe the admin user also, like, yeah, maybe the admin user also creates games. I could totally see setting up my own server, being the admin user, logging in as the admin user, creating a game and inviting players into it that way. So maybe that's it. I'm having a lot of trouble thinking through all of the security model here. I'm hoping it becomes more clear as I build more and see how I want to use the application. Okay, we're still good. So, can request profiles, and the profile should really just be like the username, what games the user is in, that sort of thing. And now I need to commit code and take a few minutes break. Add the ability to create a user. Yeah. Control X. Yes. Cool. So I'll be back in just a couple of minutes here. Okay, and I return. I probably only have a few more minutes because I imagine I'm going to get a phone call right around midnight. Unless my family forgets about the time zone difference, in which case it might be later. But a cup of chamomile and my billionaire tears. Still an Elizabeth Warren stan. I think she would have been a very good president, and instead we got, well, I guess Biden seems to have been pretty decent. As always, there's some things that I disagree with, but whatever. What next? Oh, yeah. Some things were... Okay, I'm going to start the server again because if I post something that's invalid or invalid format, I should not get a panic. Nope, not that. I want to... There we go. So I'm posting to authentication. I'm going to make it wrong. We're going to do this. And, oh. Well, what's 422? Yes, I go to the HTTP status dogs in order to unprocessable... Oh, God, figures. Okay, it's an unprocessable entity. I actually want it to be a bad request. I don't know how to make it a bad request. I might not have any choice in the matter. But the point is, even though it panics on an unwrap call in test code, it functions correct. Well, it returns a proper status code in the real server. So that's really workable. Yeah. I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to leave that alone. That's good enough. If we are getting data, then we return the user profile. If we are posting data, we're going to be updating the user. So this is basically going to be like, do you set your password? So API v1 user ID, let core equal core.clone, move. Want to do a set password request. That's my T. Okay. I don't drink chamomile all that often since it has a reputation of being one of those put you to sleep kind of teas, and that is rarely something I want. And I've got weird characters appearing there. There we go. Set password core rec. The set password request I need to define, which I'm going to make it pretty easy. Pub struct set password request. Pub password 1. We're just gonna check it right here. Put all of the logic in here. So set password Rick. Nothing else interesting there, so all of that should be good. Of course, set password hasn't been defined yet, so pub async fn set password. I need the core. Got to pass the headers in too. So that's running. Fire up the tests. Of course, there's no tests on this yet. Oh, there we go. It is now midnight. Welcome to 2025. I have no idea I don't have many viewers. I have no idea your demographics. I don't know if you are looking forward to 2025 with excitement or with dread. I'm looking forward to it with dread, but who knows? I think I'll keep going a little bit longer. I at least want to write the code for this. A user can change their password, and also async fn a user cannot change another user's password. Okay. Except, of course, the admin, who can always change a user's password. Can they? No. Admins can't change a user's password. An admin can maybe... Yeah, that's a major security problem. Admins should not be able to set somebody's password. Admins should only be able to trigger the reset process. Which, of course, requires a whole lot more additional code. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Let's authenticate the user, which gives a session ID. Then I want to retrieve my profile. No JSON is involved. We just get the data. We await the response. Let profile. Can I turn this into a one-liner? Response.json. I believe I need to do option profile dot unwrap. Verify that this is working so far. The test failed because of a none value. Oh, I forgot the session ID. Okay, so far so good, but it's not enough. Server dot post API v1 user, the user ID. So profile.user ID. And I want to post set password request. Password 1 is going to be ABCDEFG. Password 2 will be something different. We'll just say ABCD. And then this should be a bad request. I have to decide. Yeah, I think bad request is just fine. Could not compile. Assert status does not exist. Somewhere in here, I did assert a particular status code. I don't remember where. Ah, response.assert status code unauthorized. I'm forgetting to run the request. There we go, and this needs to be formatted. And I need to take a reference. $400 versus 405. Oh, right, because method not found. 405 is method not found. I haven't implemented that method yet. Correction, I'm calling the wrong method. Okay, it's not implemented. Yes, that makes sense. Now we're going to do this same call again, BCD, but it should be correct. Okay. And then I'm going to go to implement the code, which is the set password handler right here. So first of all, auth required core.clone headers user async. I need to keep track of the user ID. Why did I not? Yes, I care about the user ID as well. Ba, 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 ba. You know? No, I don't. Actually. We're gonna change things up just a bit here. Oh, dot route API v1 user password dot put. There we go. This is how we're going to do it. It's just not even going to be possible to specify the user ID that you want to set a password on. Like, yeah. Why am I getting a syntax error? Ah, that's why. Cannot find function put. There we go. Cool, cool. I'm going to quickly text my family since I'm still on. I'm surprised that they didn't call me. There we go. Might hear from them in a few minutes, might not. They're a time zone behind me, so they might not be doing much celebrating for another, like, 30 minutes or so. Which hopefully will give me time to finish this endpoint. Right. Where does not even going to include the user ID? You can only set your own password. That's how it should be. Okay, so auth required. This is the user. So, okay. If rec.password1 equals rec.password2, else we're going to do a bad request. Status code bad request, JSON none. Okay. If it's good, core.setPassword, which I believe is already a function that I have there. I'm going to do user.id, rec.password1, .await. We're going to match it against all of the possible. Actually, will we? Yeah, we will. ext, okay. Status code, okay. JSON, none. Do an error. So I'm not doing anything with the error. I'm just saying, no, I don't like you. And where are things filling? It's a type mismatch somewhere. Is it a type mismatch? Yes. Oh. Huh. Still returning a 405. That's odd. Method not allowed for... Oh. Wait, what? Where is it failing? 295. Oh. Right, okay. — 401 unauthorized. Oh. Once again, I am neglecting one of the most important things. There we go. That's good so far. Let's do one. I'm going to add one more test in here. Like, we already saw that it was passing. And maybe it deserves to be its own test case, but not going to do that. And that's all pretty good. We're in okay shape. Can set passwords, can... Yeah, the next thing really would be to create a game. Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point for the night, though. So I'm going to go ahead and save this code, push it on up. Again, I would like to figure out how to resolve... I'm in routes. Handlers mod.rs. I'd like to figure out how to resolve all of this boilerplate that keeps happening. And it might actually be that I go back to having a single handler that looks at all of these responses. Something like let handler, or no, like fn handler takes a function and it returns the status code and whatever, and it'll be like match f.await with result ext okay, and error, and even starts like breaking things down into the various app errors, and again does result ext fatal, like this. Things like that. I think something like that might be in order. I'll brainstorm on it between now and the next stream, because the next stream I really do want to create a game, and I need to do some definitions for how to make that entertaining. And for that matter, I want to get back up into the user interface, start really tying this together and really exercising all of the endpoints in a more realistic sort of way. So with that in mind, thank you all for watching, and have a good night. I'll see you next time.